It's an audio-visual medium. It's not a visual audio medium.
It may not seem like you need it at the time, but in post-production, and by the time you get to that stage in the process, if you don't have good audio, you'll really regret it. And basically, people won't be engaged in watching your film.
If the audio isn't correct, then no matter how good the rest of it is, it can sometimes completely throw you. If it's not synced, if it's not in the environment, if it's clearly ADR, then you're going to be lost. You're not in the moment anymore, and that's it, done.
It's time consuming in post to recreate audio, and if you don't do it well, it'll always stick out.
Audio is the thing that lets you know you're in good hands. Because if you sit in a theater and you're watching a short film and it's got bad acting or bad visuals, that could be an artistic choice. And you could leave it. You could trust that, hey, the author did this on purpose. The filmmaker did this on purpose. As soon as you sit down, as soon as you hear bad audio, you think, that's an amateur. I no longer need to pay attention. Bad audio is the big secret that separates the professionals from the amateurs every time.
Having someone dedicated to just looking after the sound is, akin to, a DOP behind the camera, making sure that the lighting is right, and, someone looking after the makeup, and, a dialect coach looking after the way that things are pronounced. All of those fields have, specific people to look after that. You can't treat sound any differently.
A lot of people can miss simple things like a nice, clear dialogue track. It can make all the difference. If it's noisy, if it's crackly, if it's a roomy noise, you hear a lot of echo. That can be really off-putting and distracting from what's going on. Even if you've got fantastic performances in your recorded dialogue on the day, if it's not going to be the best thing, you should just shelve that and do the whole thing in ADR if it's going to make the end product better. Kill your babies if you have to.
Dialogue is extremely important. If it's a very dialogue-heavy film, the sound from location is king, right down to lip smacks, breaths, and then off-screen actors, so children across the road that might be yelling, to help build that environment. Those are all the kinds of things that are really hard to build up in post.
There are really only 4 kinds of sound in movies. There's dialogue, there's sound effects, there's ambient that you get at the time, and there's music. And so you should be thinking about all 4 of those all the time, including in your pre-production. Don't just start thinking about it once you get there and expect that your boom op can take care of it for you.
Ambience, music, and sound design, they can be done in post-production, but what you can't really fool without spending a huge amount of money and a vast amount of stress is the production sound. So that really has to be right before you can even start thinking about making the ambience and the music and everything as you want it to be.
Unless you've got a massive post-production budget where you can ADR everything and have it properly bedded into your mix, which is probably unlikely if you're making a short film, really make sure that your audio is good, and that often means being very nice to the sound person, because everyone hates it when the sound person goes no for sound. Everyone's like,
If the soundie isn't happy, if the soundie is not happy before you're about to roll, it's usually for a pretty good reason. There'll be a plane going overhead that you can't hear because you don't have headphones on and an extremely sensitive microphone. They also need to make sure that you also need to make sure that you've given them time to put radio mics on the actors if they're there, because that in itself can make or break whether you can hear the dialogue or not.
You basically want to be using the actor's performance on the day and do anything you can to make sure that happens. So you do need a good sound person, or you do need to make sure that you've got the right gear to do that, unless of course you're making a silent film.
It's actually making sure that they're in a position to be able to get close enough to the actor, or perhaps they'd feel a little bit more comfortable if they were around the other side of the car so that they can get a little bit further away to match the perspective of their camera. The soundie needs to be included in the pre-rolling checkups. When the soundie says sound speed, yes, I'm recording, then you're good to go. If they haven't said that, then I wouldn't be recording, because it could just completely blow the take.
We're used to in the movies being lied to through our eyes all the time with CGI, with funny editing, with all sorts of stuff, of cinematography. We have a lot of defenses against being manipulated through our eyes. We're really vulnerable to manipulation through our ears. And so a lot of times if you need to have an emotional turn, if you need to have a surprise, if you need to have a story turn that you're not setting up visually, you can set it up really directly through sound, and the audience will be along for the ride and they'll thank you for it.
You can tart up a picture. You can take a piece of 8mm film where the frame's that big, and you can blow it up and you can grade it brilliantly, and you know, the picture is all about context. But what really helps the story have an entire world is in layers and layers of the right sound.
Doing a Foley pass is really important. It just brings, especially if you've got a bit of action or something like a fight or something like that, just makes things ping a bit more, you know. So you want to get the best you can on the day, but to heighten scenes and to heighten movement, and it'll just bring your film alive if you do put the effort in to do a good Foley pass at the end of it.
And I work with guys who a shovel going into the ground will have 10 sounds. It'll have the metallic sound of the shovel hitting the ground, it'll have the next bit, it'll have crunches all around it. And by the time you get, you know, fat, that's where you want the sound.
I guess if I had a message to give to any short filmmakers, it would be, I mean, I'm standing here at Park Road Post in Wellington. This is one of the best facilities in the world. And even here, we can't really substitute good production audio. Well, we can, but it will cost you a massive amount of money, and it will never end up as good as what happened on the day.